you doing, everybody? Vasu Vada Party, Casey Freelove here. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, April 26th, 2021. I just had a little blank there. Coming up on this podcast, what a weekend in Major League Baseball. The Padres fans feeling good about themselves, as are the Giants fans. The Kansas City Royals are in first place on April 26, 2021. You have to look that up the last time they were there. They've outscored Detroit. They just swept Detroit in a four-game series, 15-5. So they picked up 10 runs in their differential. They're on a four-game winning streak. The White Sox are on a four-game winning streak. Royals +3 in run differential, but the White Sox +21. Don't know how that's going to fare out for the rest of the year. And, of course, in the American League, the A's lose on Sunday, winning streak at 12 over. The Astros and Mariners go tonight. Those are the two primary competitors right now. Mike Trout will be back in the lineup for the Angels. They'll be back tonight, actually. Shohei Ohtani is going to be on the mound. There's not going to be a DH tonight. We'll get to all the baseball stuff. Shohei Ohtani, the first pitcher since Babe Ruth to pitch for a team and lead the league in home runs. Obviously, he's a DH, and he is Babe Ruth right now relative to this generation. But what a game he's got right now, and he's certainly doing it on the mound and in the batter's box. Casey, how are you today to start this fine week?
Doing fine. Pleased to be with you. I was looking yesterday because I saw that stat about Ohtani, and he's moved up quite a bit in the AL MVP race. I mean, Trout's still clearly the favorite at 2-1, but Ohtani's at 10-1. And you got to think one thing that Ohtani can do that Mike Trout can't is pitch and play in more games. So maybe that will be an advantage. And I got to tell you, Vasu, I know we're about to get right into football, but the American League West has been a lot more enjoyable than I think you, myself, and Chuck would have thought coming into the season. Competitive. The A's, of course, got hot. The Astros got cold. They'll get hot again. Mariners have played some good baseball, and the Angels as well. So I think that's a nice surprise for those of us that live on the western side of the U.S.
Well, I think everybody thought, we thought at the beginning of the year in the AL East, the Red Sox kind of turned that division around. Tampa Bay's playing a little bit better, although Toronto beat them 2 out of 3 over the weekend. And then the Yankees, who won the series against the Indians 2 out of 3, had a 3-0 lead yesterday, but gave it up, and the Indians got one back. So it's going to be interesting to see. But we'll get to all the baseball. The NBA, I'm going to tell you later why in the NBA the Philadelphia 76ers are the team to beat in the East and not the Brooklyn Nets. And then Utah and Phoenix are flip-flopping back and forth in terms of the Western Conference. And those 7 to 10 spots in both the East and West are very, very interesting as we get to 2.5 weeks left until the playoff tournament. But in a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by Russell Baxter, who used to be at ESPN for 22 years. Researcher. He's got all the numbers. And by the way, thank you to everyone on Facebook for all the nice comments you said about my dad. The reason I bring Russell Baxter in the numbers of is my dad was a PhD electrical engineer, and so I have to come up with numbers to match up with Russell Baxter today, since I'm not the mathematical whiz that my dad and my brother are from that standpoint. So I appreciate all the comments on that. He would have been 96. Thank you to everybody. That was really nice to see yesterday on kind of a tough day for us every year. Those that have lost parents understand. But Russell Baxter, Pro Football Guru founder, ProFootballGuru.com founder, also works for Fanside and NFL Press Room Film or something like that. I got it on the banner here. We'll put it up there in a second when he comes on. So what do you think, Casey? We've got the draft this week. It's going to be all dominated by the draft. Today, Thursday, are going to be drafted by, here's the top 25 picks. Obviously, Jacksonville, the Jets, 49ers, Atlanta, the top 4. Everybody's going to kind of fall into place from there. What do you think so far going into the week?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of questions for Russell about movement and different sites with different projections as far as who's going where. I'm very intrigued by where the Patriots could perhaps go with their pick. I mean, because there's still going to be some wheeling and dealing probably going on before this is all shaken out. I want to know what Jimmy Garoppolo's mindset's going to be now that we're all but assured the San Francisco 49ers are going to select one of these quarterbacks and maybe Justin Fields, who knows. And then quality draft here, Vasu. It's rare that, in my opinion, the 2 best players in the draft aren't the top 2 picks because everybody's so quarterback heavy. And I love Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be great, but I really love Kyle Pitts. I watched a whole lot of Florida football this year. There wasn't a man on the field that could cover him when he was healthy. And then Penei Sewell out of Oregon, one of the elite tackles to come into the game. I mean, he is going to save somebody's career probably protecting that blind side. So this is a year where you don't go in kind of just, I have to pick and choose and hope that I get the best guy. We've got studs. I mean, what a year. And also, these kids that are coming in, they may be hungrier than anybody else that's come into the draft recently, because think about the hell they had to go through just to get on the field to play the few college football games that they did. So they understand discipline, they understand work ethic, and they also understand how to stay COVID-free. I'd say at least 90% of them. So I think that'll be something fun to watch. And then, of course, once the fireworks start flying and players start coming off the board, it's going to be real interesting. I mean, I don't know, between Mac Jones and the kid from South Dakota State, it's like, where are they going to go? Is Zach Wilson the second best quarterback in the draft? And what if Trevor Lawrence turns out to be a mirage? That would be just critically awful for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's so many different things to discuss, and I'm very much looking forward to not just round one, but the entire draft.
Vasi Party, Casey Freelove here with you on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Casey, I'm going to remove. Oh, here he is. He's coming in right now. I just got the text. There he is. ProFootballGuru.com. Let me find the banner here as we said it. ProFootballGuru.com and Fanside, and then NFLFullPress.com. It's a pleasure to welcome in Russell Baxter from ProFootballGuru.com. He's the founder of it, and also Fanside. He writes for a couple of other programming notes here. Here it is. That's what I'm looking for, so I can read it. Pro Football Guru founder, Fanside NFL, NFL Spin Zone, Full Press NFL. 22 years with ESPN as a researcher, and at Bax Football Guru. You can find him on Twitter. He's a tremendous follow. Russell, it's the first time we've seen each other on camera. Thank you very much for the time. Casey Freelove, Vasi Party here with you.
Hi, how you doing, guys? I got a little. I can't figure out what this glare is.
It's the computer screen. That's fine. We get it all the time too. I think it's because your blinds are shut, but that's okay. Just
I tried opening up the blinds, and it was
okay.
Startling.
We're all learning the internet as we do these Zoom internet streams and all that. But we're not worried about the glare. We're worried about football knowledge. This is draft week. This is probably one of your favorite weeks with draft week coming up. I don't know how much. I'm sure you spent a lot of time watching the college game. I know you're more NFL side, but let's talk about the draft from just a macro standpoint. Obviously, the first four picks are what's everybody interested in. Do you think that things will just fall into place once the top four picks are made, or is it kind of a mishmash after Trevor Lawrence?
Well, there could be. It seems so easy. We're kind of assuming that quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3, which has happened in the past, 1971, 1999. We've never seen 4 go right in a way. We saw 4 in the top 10 a couple of years ago in 2018. One of them is kind of bounced around everywhere. Josh Rosen. One of them is now in Carolina after being picked by the Jets. One just got his third-year option picked up, and that's Baker Mayfield. And one got some MVP votes last year in Josh Allen. And, of course, the last guy to get taken in the round is the guy who's been in the playoffs the last 3 years, and that's Lamar Jackson. So it would seem that way, but there's always seems to be a surprise. You just never know. And I think what you're hearing right now is, has San Francisco really made up its mind on who they want? If some people are set in stone that it's Mac Jones. Josh Rosen is, not Josh Rosen. I'm sorry. There's the other prospects out there are, I don't want to say unknown. Justin Fields is somebody that a lot of people are obviously intrigued with. But San Francisco also has Jimmy Garoppolo, but they've made no bones about the fact that they're coming up to get a quarterback. Now, I understand the problem with Jimmy Garoppolo. He has been a person who has struggled to stay healthy. He's also struggled to hold on to the football. And I think why that struggling to hold on to the football, to be honest with you, has come over the years of the fact that he hasn't played a lot of football. I mean, this guy was a second-round pick in 2014. And I believe Patrick Mahomes has more career starts than he does. And Patrick Mahomes came in the league 3 years later than he is. And again, he comes off another injury year. Now, the year he stayed healthy and started all 16 games, San Francisco went to the Super Bowl. Again, the turnover problems popped up. So what are the Niners exactly going to do? Kyle Shanahan seems more of a pocket guy. As I heard Trent talking today on a show, and Trent, I worked with Trent at ESPN for a couple of years and so on. He really knows his stuff. It's almost like a misnomer to the fact that both styles of quarterbacks still win in this league. The mobile guys and the pocket guys. In fact, we've seen that the last 2 years. Patrick Mahomes can get on his horse and do what he's got to do, and Tom Brady kind of stands there and picks people apart. So I'm not sure what the Niners are going to do. And in some ways, I know this sounds weird, I'm almost not dead set on what the Jets are going to do. Okay, I know everybody's talking Zach Wilson, but you've seen stranger things happen. And once one of the dominoes doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, that's really when the fun begins. So for a long time, I thought the intrigue of the draft began at 4 with Atlanta. Maybe it actually begins at 2 with the Jets. Someone comes up to the Jets and gives them that offer they can't refuse, and they can still get a quarterback, but at the same time accumulate more picks. I mean, you're talking about a team that won 2 games last year.
Go ahead, Casey.
Well, I want to continue along those lines, Russell, and thanks for being on. Talking about the New York Jets, we've kind of got a recurring theme since we started the podcast. When we talk about drafts, you're going to see the Jets, you're going to see the Jaguars, basically franchises that are consistently in the top 10 because they don't win enough to ever get out of that top 10. And it's as a result, oftentimes, of their draft. I mean, what did Sam Darnold do to kind of turn off so much that you now think a guy who played at a mid-level football school at BYU, and I don't like Zach Wilson. I bashed this guy on the show for days. I don't think he's a good prospect for the NFL. I would take any of the other guys over him. But my question is about, kind of trying to change things. They bring in Robert Saleh, who's a great coach. I have a lot of respect from him. But a lot of times the coach can't do everything because the organization just kind of shines through. So I'm wondering if maybe the Zach Wilson thing is being floated out there so that there's a little less pressure should they decide to pull the trigger on Fields or Trey Lance or one of these other guys. Or like you said, maybe trade back, still get a good first-round quarterback, but actually get some more picks because that team has so many places they've got to build. It's not going to be done in just 1 year.
That's right. For those people who don't know, with Cleveland and Tampa making the playoffs last year, guess who has the longest active playoff drought in the league? That would be the green and white of the New York Jets. They've been there since 2010 with Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez when they lost the AFC title game to Pittsburgh. So, it didn't happen overnight. But the last 4 years have really obviously been rough. I mean, Todd Bowles' first year there, they were 10-6. They missed the playoffs on tiebreakers. But it's been disaster ever since. Now, I will say, I'll give the Jets credit. And tanking is a word I just can't stand. Okay? If you want to tank, go to Miami and watch Flipper. Okay. And I don't believe teams do that. I mean, I heard Miami was going to tank in 2019. All they did was win 5 of their last 9 games and bounce New England from a first-round bye. The Jets won later in the year. They knocked off 2 teams headed to the playoffs, the Rams and the Browns. I know the Browns were down their wide receivers, but players play hard. Okay. So, but yeah, if you have the needs, and Joe Douglas had a respectable draft last year with some of the guys he brought in, bolstered the offensive line, which is a big problem area and so on. But yeah, I have a tendency to agree. There probably is still question marks about Zach Wilson. To me, there's a lot of question marks about anybody who played last year. And I don't mean that as a put down because we had such an unusual football season last year because of COVID. Some teams played a few games. Some teams played a lot of games. Some players opted out. It was tough. And we had no combine this year as well. And that was the thing that was different from you. The pandemic really kind of hit in March last year. The combine had already taken place. So teams had more of a book on college experience as well as the combine variables and so. But like you said, the Jets have fallen off badly in recent years. Okay, Sam Darnold, his reputation coming into the pros was a bit of a turnover bug. Okay, and in the games he played, we still saw that. All right, so there wasn't any real surprise. But with the new regime and the new head coach, you get a new quarterback and so on. Ask the Browns what it's like to go through head coaches and quarterbacks. They're on their 12th head coach, even though he won Coach of the Year. 12th head coach since 1999. Baker Mayfield is their 30th different starting quarterback since 1999. They're in a division with the Steelers who've had 3 coaches since 1969. Okay, it's something a little off there and so on. But again, kind of piggybacking off what you're saying, I'm not sure about number 2 now. Okay, as we get closer and closer and closer, are the Jets dead set on Zach Wilson, or one of these other guys kind of lured them and, playing the game and staying quiet? And to the Jets' credit, I will say this: they're sitting at number 2. There hasn't been a lot of noise out of them lately, and that's the best way to play it. The teams that do a lot of talking sometimes their hand. I always tell the story way back in 1988. It was the first draft I ever went to. Early in the first round, the Chiefs and the Lions, going back and forth over a guy named Neil Smith. Okay, and you would have thought the Chiefs already drafted him in January. That's how dead set they were on game. And the Lions were intrigued by a guy named Benny Blades, a safety from Miami. And I know you guys know these names and so on. And about a day before the draft, the Lions were saying, you know what, Neil Smith kind of looks intriguing to us. So Kansas City got a little panicky and flip-flopped the picks. Then they had to give up their number 2 pick. So the Chiefs didn't have a number 2 pick. The Lions took Chris Spielman, by the way, with that second-round pick.
Not a bad pick. Go ahead, Casey. You got one more? Go ahead, Casey. You got one more?
Well, sure. Let me ask you this, because the quarterback trend is not just anybody who follows pro football like the three of us do. I'm just wondering, when you've got a can't-miss talent, in my opinion, like the best tight end to come in the league since Rob Gronkowski sitting there in the form of Kyle Pitts. And look, I'm an SEC honk. I followed the Southeastern Conference since I was born, and I've watched this kid play a lot of football. Wingspan, height, aggressiveness, strength, speed. He's a football geek, and I mean that affectionately. He's the one can't-miss guy in my mind that's sitting here in the top 5. Maybe that's something that a team like the Jets or somebody wants to trade up and get. I guess I just want to get your take on, when you've got the pressure from the fan base of selecting a quarterback, so you've got your glamour guy to put on the season tickets, but you've got just a cannot-miss prospect in my mind sitting there number 4 on the board. What's the mindset of a general manager going through that?
Well, I think the mindsets are changing in the NFL because there's certain positions you don't necessarily go up and get high. It used to be safeties. Tight ends kind of fall under that category as well. I want, and I'm doing this strictly off the top of my head. If Kyle Pitts goes top 5, I think it's the highest tight end, I think, since Vernon Davis, which I think was 2006. And I think he was number 6 overall. Okay. So, I mean, you really have to probably go back and look if there's ever been a top 5 tight end. Okay. Right now, you're not supposed to take a running back in the first round. You have to wait till the second round. And I get all that because the second rounders have had certainly their share of success. Derrick Henry's led the league in the rushing 2 years in a row, 2,027 yards and so on. So that could be it. There could be a team who thinks Kyle Pitts is their offensive cog to put them over the top. So again, the Jets have been kind of quiet. Could down. What's Miami up to? I mean, Miami has been up and down like an escalator. First round of this draft. I mean, and they have so much to play for down, with their future picks as well. So again, I think the intrigue of this draft is suddenly the Jets and less the Falcons, which I think was kind of the conventional wisdom. And my goodness, if let's say Pitts does go number 2, boy, is it going to be active. Okay. And remember, this isn't the old days when you get 15 minutes to make your first round pick. You only get 10.
Right.
That's changed things a lot over the years.
Our guest, Russell Baxter, he's a good follow on Twitter at Bax Football Guru, founder of the Pro Football Guru website, Fanside, writes for NFL Spin Zone, Full Press NFL. Let me make sure I get that right and say it correctly. It was with ESPN for all the years. All right, so Casey said it earlier, and I'm not big on the draft itself. I'm excited for the kids because the same teams always end up there. Your Jacksonville's, your Atlanta's, your Carolinas, the Jets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Unlike Casey, I'm big on Zach Wilson, and you said that there's a chance that he may not. Living in the Bay Area, everybody lost their damn mind here for the last month when they made that trade a month ahead of the draft itself. Now every expert's out there, thanks to fantasy football leagues and thanks to draft leagues, they know how to set a lineup and they know how to draft it and are pseudo GMs, and they're like Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Here's why this. Some guys even got on the radio and said they're watching film. I don't know where they get the film, but they're watching film. But anyway, the whole point of it.
You know what? It's probably an old Viewmaster. Okay.
Don't age us, Russell. Don't age us here,
No,
Russell.
no. Well, listen, you know as well as I want. This is the week that everybody becomes an NFL GM.
Right.
Okay? And it's just like the week that everyone becomes a college basketball expert by doing their brackets and doing their pool sheets. And half the country hasn't even watched it.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So I guess the question I have is I think the 49ers would greatly benefit by the Jets not taking Zach Wilson. And here's the reason I think the Jets probably will take Zach Wilson because, and why, as you said, they're quiet because they interest me from the standpoint of they've got to do something with the rest of their team. None of these guys that are going to come in, Trevor Lawrence will probably play, and Urban Meyer's there to rear him and bring him up. But they need other players too. Obviously, the Jets need other players. They got to protect. I mean, poor Sam Darnold. I love Sam Darnold. I think he's going to do great in Carolina, but you got to have protection around him. I think Zach Wilson's the most mobile quarterback in this draft, and I think he can make all the throws. But I think the fact that Robert Saleh used to be the 49ers defensive coordinator, they have the same mindset with Kyle Shanahan as to the types of players they like. Obviously, Saleh on defense, but he saw Shanahan draft for 4 years.
Sure.
And that's why I think that Zach Wilson will probably go to the Jets. Is there any scenario that you see? I know you just mentioned Kyle Pitts, but is there any scenario you see where they might not take Zach Wilson and then try and get some stud offensive lineman or some stud defensive player and then go after a quarterback later, maybe make a trade and get this pick up and get a trade down later and get another quarterback that could be just as good or serviceable down the road? Because my point is these quarterbacks are not going to change the franchise right away because of where the scenarios are of the teams. They need other players around. That's why I think Zach Wilson has more upside than Trevor Lawrence right now, because the Jacksonville Jaguars don't have players right now. And I think sometimes that goes into people's accounts, these pseudo GMs. Oh, he's a bust right after year one and whatever. And I think that's unfair to judge players like that, Russell.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's probably unfair to judge players even after they play 2 years. Okay, I mean, I've seen on different Facebook groups and social media calling players bust and so on, and they haven't even taken the field. Listen, the only bust I know.
Those are the guys watching film.
Yes, exactly. Listen, the only sure busts I know of are in Canton, Ohio. Does that make sense?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Can't wait to be there, as a matter of fact. I think anything goes, and Jacksonville they don't seem like they're budging, okay? and I totally understand why, okay? But it's always interesting to see when the card comes in, okay, and who was talking who and so on. But for the Niners to take that deal as early as they did in the process, there's something to be said for that. Okay, they're obviously, and they've made no bones about the fact that they want a quarterback. They're just not making any bones about which one it is. And maybe they're just trying to lure somebody to come up, and even if it's a flip flop. Okay, but I mean, you got to be careful with these flip flops, and John Lynch knows as well as anyone. John Lynch was involved in the flip flop with Mitch Trubisky 4 years ago, and all they did was remember they flopped, and guess what happened? They both kind of wound up with flops. Okay, Mitch Trubisky is now with the Bills, and Solomon Thomas is with the Raiders. So it didn't work out for either one of them. Meanwhile, Myles Garrett tearing up the league. Okay, and he's the first overall pick. So you just don't know sometimes. And in this NFL now, where coaching stability can be a little shaky and coordinator stability, now coordinators move around much more than head coaches now. And you've got guys who are, you got like. Anthony Lynn is now the offensive coordinator in Detroit. Okay, so these guys are getting jobs who were former head coaches. So there's so much in play here. And again, I think the Jets being quiet is the best thing they can do. Again, the Niners are making so much noise about a quarterback. It's almost like they're trying to bait some. I'm going to call it chumming. I'm going to steal that from Jaws. That would be the movie, not the quarterback. So.
One more for me, and then I'll turn it over to Casey here. By the way, thanks for bringing up Mitchell Trubisky as a longtime Bears fan. I really appreciate that. So thank you for that with all those other quarterbacks in there. I'm actually fascinated with I'm gonna throw in three quick parts here. The Eagles have done a couple of things. They've got Jalen Hurts there. They're probably got to get somebody for him to throw to, and obviously some offensive linemen to block because they look terrible. But I'm interested in what Cincinnati's going to do because they've got their quarterback they need protection for Joe Burrow, but they also, now with AJ Green gone, they may need somebody to throw the ball to. And what do you think Atlanta's going to do with Matt Ryan? I know that's a lot to throw at you, but I figure I'll just end my segment on that.
Oh, that's all right. Well, Matt Ryan, I think still has a lot of football left in him. I think some people seem to think he's been in the league 18 years. He's been in the league 13 years. Okay. He was third overall pick in 2000. He puts up a lot of big numbers. If Matt Ryan could play defense, they'd be in the Super Bowl every other year. Yeah. The problem if they could find someone to rush the passer. So Atlanta's in a weird spot because they're fourth overall. But the thing that has plagued them for years is the lack of a pass rush. They were dead last in passing defense this past season. A lot of that has to do with the fact the year they went to the Super Bowl in 2016, Vic Beasley led the league in sacks, but he was a one-hit wonder. He disappeared. And it wasn't like they got 50 sacks. They were just better at sacking the quarterback. Remember, they actually sacked Brady 5 times in Super Bowl 51 and still couldn't get the job. Couldn't close the door. So Atlanta could go in a lot of different directions, I think. And then they're another team I think that could definitely move down. I'd be really – now, listen, they have a new GM and they have a new head coach. I find it hard to believe the new GM's MO would splash and go out and get a quarterback that's going to sit for a couple of years. Okay? I think they have other needs. But again, Kyle Pitts makes sense there. And listen, they have Hayden Hurst there, who they got from the Ravens in the trade. Matt Ryan had Austin Hooper there for a couple of years, and he was very productive for him. You know, on how far Atlanta, listen, if I'm Atlanta, I try to move down, and the guy I try to get is Patrick Surtain.
Love him. You're talking Casey's language there with Alabama. Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And again, folks, you can follow what Russell's talking about here on his Twitter site, which is @BacksFootballGuru, where I got my next question from your article that you wrote for NFLSpinZone.com. I want to go back to the AFC East and talk about 2 franchises, starting with the Miami Dolphins, who find themselves in a pretty sweet spot, in my opinion. It's not just because I'm a Bama homer. I think Tua has the ability and the want to develop as a good quarterback. Now, what does he need? Some weapons, targets to go after. You mentioned some free agents that they may be pursuing, guys like Golden Tate. But as far as the draft, I really like where they're at. And if I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm very excited. Pick 6 and pick 12 there available. I'm looking at the CBS mock draft. They've got Jalen Waddle projected in that spot. Let's not forget about the Heisman Trophy winner, the greatest wide receiver in SEC history statistically, Devontae Smith, who's also available. But again, throwing on your GM hat, the Dolphins have a few needs, but I think you absolutely have to get some more weapons there for Tua so he's more comfortable in the pocket and not running around for his life, because that spells a short career. So kind of lay out for you, what do you think they might be doing strategy-wise there in the first round with those 2 picks?
Well, listen, Miami made great strides on defense. Now, they couldn't be much worse than they were in 2019 to give up most points in the league. Okay? Now, this year, they rebounded in that regard. They were more bend but not break. They led the league in takeaways. They had 29 takeaways. And that's classic Belichick defense. The year that they won their first Super Bowl, people forget this. In 2001, that's 20 years ago, I understand that. The Patriots that year were ranked 24th in total defense. So in other words, they gave up the 24th most yards in the league. Gave up the 6th fewest points. Okay. Would create plays. And then during their postseason run, okay, when they beat the Raiders and the Steelers and the Rams to win Super Bowl 36, offensive unit scored 3 touchdowns in 3 playoff games. And one of them had nothing to do with Tom Brady, who was on the sidelines when Drew Bledsoe threw a touchdown pass in the AFC title game. Their special teams and defense scored 3 touchdowns.
Right.
Offense scored 3 touchdowns in an offensively geared league and won a Super Bowl. Okay. So again, styles change over 20 years and so on, but I agree with you. They got to get to some more support. Remember their leading rusher in 2019? That was Ryan Fitzpatrick, who had 30-something yards. They got better in that regard this year with Myles Gaskin, former 7th-round pick. They added Malcolm Brown via free agency from the Rams, but I still think they could use some more help there as well. Their offensive line had 3 rookies on it last year, and including the right side. So there's the potential there to develop. They added Will Fuller in free agency. stay healthy. That's been the only bug on him. I mean, he is as deep threat there is in the league, but durability has been a question mark. So I agree with you. Get some more offensive weapons, make life a little easier on the defense, be a more balanced football team, and I think they can push the Bills in that division. I think New England will be improved. I'm not sure what to make of the Jets because they're certainly in rebuild mode. But Miami's listen, you win 10 games, you expect to get to the playoffs. You win 10 games when they're taking 7 teams in the playoffs, you expect to get to the playoffs. And they still couldn't get it done last year.
Casey, you got one more before we let him go?
Yeah, I want to follow up on the Patriots there. They've got the 15th pick overall, but they've also got 10 picks in this draft. So they do have a little flexibility if they decide they want to move up. I'm seeing it depends on which, there's a lot of different mock drafts. I see one where they've got Mac Jones go in there to become the next quarterback. But I think, with Edelman retiring, the fact that we don't know what we're going to get out of those guys that opted out for COVID, and I don't fault them for that, but those guys are seasoned, less experienced. What do you make of the Patriots? If we've got some fans listening that like the Patriots, what should they expect in this draft? And I guess just kind of look ahead a little bit towards this year. I mean, are they more of a 8-8 team, or are they still a team that could challenge for a wild card? Because I think we'd all agree Buffalo's probably going to win that division.
I think if at one time last year, even with all their problems, I believe the Patriots were 6-6. Okay, and they started out 2-1, and Cam Newton, before he contracted COVID, was putting the pieces back together. He's got to be healthier than he was at this time a year ago. Remember, he had the shoulder surgery after 18. He missed 14 games in 2019 with Carolina. He didn't join the Dolphins, I think, until June of last year. Now here, again, ironically enough, I think the thing that could really catapult the Patriots, they do need offensive weapons. But if you saw their defense the second half of 2019, they couldn't stop the run. They certainly couldn't stop Derrick Henry in the wild card game. And last year, I believe they were like 26th against the run. And I go back 20 years ago when they won their first Super Bowl. And I remember the guy they took in the first round. Obviously, Tom Brady came there the year before at number 199. But they grabbed a guy named Richard Seymour.
Yeah, that worked out.
With their first pick. They don't have – who is their dominant defensive guy?
Right.
They've got the defensive backs, okay? I mean, the Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson, who tied for the NFL lead in interceptions, and McCourty and so on. McCourty. I want to make sure I get the McCourty brothers right here and so on. But who on the front seven scared? And Kyle Van Noy is back. But where's the dominant front seven guy? Where's the guy up the middle? I mean, from Richard Seymour to Vince Wilfork to Ty Warren, some of those defensive lines they had were a big catalyst. I mean, early on when the Patriots were winning 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, it was a defensive team. They managed to do it more offensively those last couple of years, even though the last Super Bowl they won was a 13-3 slugfest with the Rams. So they need playmakers, more playmakers for Cam Newton. And I think if there were better defensive linemen in the draft, they would stand put at 15. But I don't think there's anybody really worthy of the 15th. That sounds like a weird thing to say. Worthy of the 15th overall pick. Okay, if someone wants to come up, I think they could move down. I mean, you could argue that Patrick Surtain might be the best defensive player in this draft. Okay, I'm not saying he is. You could certainly make the case.
Sure. Russell Baxter, our guest here. All right, last one for me, and then we'll let you get out of here. Thank you again for the time. Appreciate it. If you missed any of the broadcast, you can download and subscribe on Apple or anywhere you get your podcast. Lots of information from Russell Baxter. Let's take a look at after the top 4 picks, because everybody's talking about Jacksonville, the Jets, and San Francisco and Atlanta, and Cincinnati and Miami. But let's take a macro view of the draft. What team has interested you outside of the top 5 in terms of what they're going to do? I'm looking at Denver, and I'm looking, obviously, what Philadelphia does at 13. But also, I am kind of, well, obviously my Bears at 20, but that's a show for another time when I can just complain about everything there with Andy Dalton. But just a couple of teams maybe, or something from a macro view that you're looking at as an interesting spot in the draft order, Russell.
It sounds like recency bias and so on, Baltimore. Okay, be it Ozzie Newsome or Eric DeCosta, they've done a pretty good job with their drafts. Eric DeCosta was a big part of Ozzie Newsome's staff when he was in Baltimore. They now have 2 first-round picks after the Orlando. I see you like my little thing. The Chiefs went and won a Super Bowl in Miami. They lost the Super Bowl in Tampa, and now they're in Orlando. Okay, you just can't make that stuff up.
No.
So, and it's a good move for Baltimore and Kansas City as well, because they got rid of a disgruntled player, for lack of a better word. If you're the Ravens, he wanted to play left tackle. That's the money position and so on. They didn't want it. Now they can have 2 first-round picks, including number 31 at Kansas City. Maybe they get it. This is a tackle deep draft. There could be 8 or 9 tackles go in the first 2 rounds. Okay, so they can replace him and do it fairly economically as well. But I'm always intrigued by Baltimore because we have seen what they've done over the years. Remember Ozzie Newsome's last draft? I think he wheeled and he wound up with like 12 players. Remember?
Yeah.
In the first round, he got Lamar Jackson. Baltimore's a very aggressive franchise, and that's one of the reasons they've been in the playoffs the last 3 years. They have needs. They need pass rushers. They need wide receivers. They now have 9 picks, and they have a little flexibility. So I'm going to keep an eye on the Ravens because I think they always bear watching regardless of who's calling the shots.
Very interested. All right, Russell Baxter, our guest, Pro Football Guru founder, Fanside NFL, NFL Spin Zone, Full Press NFL, was with ESPN for a long time. That's how I heard his name. And I appreciate the Facebook friendship, and I appreciate you coming on. Bax Football Guru on Twitter. Let me see here. Anything else that I can think of? No, that's about it, I think. So thanks very much for the time. Enjoy the draft. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. What do you got going on on your websites and for Pro Football Guru? What are you writing on? What can people look forward to?
Well, tomorrow you'll see on Fansided a piece I did, every team's best off-season acquisitions, pre-draft. And, 31 teams actually added a veteran. I don't have to tell you what team did not add a veteran. Okay. They did add a new defensive coordinator. Okay. So I had to bend my rules a little bit when it came to the Green Bay Packers. Okay. But even Tampa Bay snuck in the wire. Giovanni Bernard. Okay. So, and of course, they had team, I wanted, you have to look. I think the Houston Texans have more signed free agents than the Houston Astros have on their roster. I've never seen. I've been charting these acquisitions since free agents to be.
Yeah.
I've never seen the team, and it's not that like they signed any superstars. They just signed everyone. Okay, it reminds me of the days before they had the roster limits. What's Houston going to do? Put 120 people in training camp?
I don't know. It's a good question. All right. Hey, nobody gets in this business without being a sports fan. So you grew up on the East Coast. Are you a Jets or Giants fan?
Neither. No.
Neither? Who's your team?
What team?
NFL team.
I don't do teams.
You don't do teams.
I do all 32 teams.
No, I know. By the way,
I know that's strange in this day and age in our professional. Okay. There are people all over the world. I swear they're French. Because I hear they use the word "we" a lot.
Yeah, we, boo, yeah, all that other stuff. Yeah,
we, sacre bleu. I don't have that
all the time. Yeah. All right, Russell Baxter, appreciate it. By the way, the Facebook group you're on too, NFL Talk 32. Is that what it's called? Something like that. That Facebook group.
No, I'm gonna deflect you to a different group called Football Talk Seriously.
Football Talk Seriously. That's the one I just saw today. That's a great group.
Yeah, get on there and we'll post the podcast on there.
Yeah, I can't wait to be yelled at by Facebook again by another group now after all the comments we made today. So I can't wait for that. Russell Baxter, Pro Football Guru founder at Bax Football Guru. We appreciate the time. We really do. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Hopefully we'll catch up with you down the road as we get to training camps, and we'll talk soon.
And we've done this show for about 40 minutes, and who knows what happened in the last 40 minutes.
We'll know Thursday. For sure. We'll be checking your Twitter site out. Thanks, Russell. Really appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Casey, good stuff there. Russell Baxter, Pro Football Guru founder, and NFL Football Talk Seriously. That's a great Facebook group to go to, and you get a lot of words. There's a lot of media people on there as well too, but all the fan stuff on there is really good. So let's just join that group and get yelled at again, Casey, by our knowledgeable picks that we have. All right, we're going to take 30. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And if you're on Twitter, I mean, if you listen to us, you like what we talk about, definitely check out Bax Football Guru. That's BAX, because, I mean, this guy, he's got, look at the big brain on Russell. I mean, I'm looking through here. If you like a team, he's got a write-up for your team, and he is going and digging deep. The only thing, Vasu, before we go to break, I wanted to talk to you just real briefly, because I didn't get a chance to ask Russell. We're excited about the draft. We didn't mention the Buccaneers at all because, if I'm not mistaken, they're the first defending champion in God knows how long that just re-signed all their own guys. They're not worried about where they go in the draft. Obviously, they're going to have low picks at the ends of these rounds. And I just feel like, you know, somebody can literally just pick up the phone and call whoever the hell he wants. Hey, Edelman, why don't you come down here for a couple of games? And they'll be able to just kind of recruit guys, which gives them a little bit of an advantage we don't see in other draft rooms. I think what I'm saying is I don't think there's a lot of pressure on Tampa Bay as far as what they get. They're going to like what they get, but they like what they got already.
You mean the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Super Bowl champions, haven't signed anybody else? Yeah, it's going to be I wonder if anybody's going to pull a Mike. I wonder if the Jets all of a sudden are going to pull a Mike Ditka trade and trade their whole draft to get one player. So I remember that happened, and Doug Plank was talking about that the last time we were on. All right, anyway, we'll take a break. We got a little Major League Baseball, a little NBA to get to. Obviously, big weekend in Major League Baseball. The NBA 2.5 weeks away from the playoffs. Draft day Thursday. It's going to be interesting. Our thanks again to Russell Baxter. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live and on our YouTube channel as well, too, powered by Stables Media. Back in 30 seconds with the rest of the Make the Money and Run podcast with Casey Bosley today. How you doing, everyone? Buster Vada Party, Casey Freelove. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. We just had Russell Baxter on at Bax Football Guru on Twitter, BAX for his last name, Baxter. If you missed any of it, download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. It's a great read. He's a great follow on Twitter, and also you can hear the podcast on Apple and Spotify, and you can get all his other sites that he writes at and does all the stuff in a couple of Facebook groups he had on. All right, let's move on, Casey. You can catch us Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays. Let's move on to the National League here in Major League Baseball. What a weekend it was. The Dodgers and Padres. Padres going to take 3 out of 4. My worst fears happened that I said at the beginning of the year before everybody started anointing the Los Angeles Dodgers World Championship. First of all, don't jinx my team when you do that. Secondly, I was worried about the bullpen. And sure enough, the bullpen reared its ugly head last night. A 7-1 lead that you never blow. I think the ESPN percentages, the win percentage was like at 92% when you have a 7-1 lead in the 7th inning. And here come the Padres, and then they forced extra innings, and San Diego ends up winning. The Dodgers took 2 out of 3 last weekend. San Diego took 3 out of 4 this weekend, so 4-3 so far on the record. But by virtue of San Diego losing to Milwaukee at home for the 3 games, the Giants are in second place. Hey, and look at us. Don't forget about us, because they beat Miami 3 out of 4 over the weekend with unbelievable pitching that they had this weekend. The one loss that they had was even a well-pitched game on Saturday night with the Marlins and Giants. So, Casey, what's your National League West takes as we get to the National League lines at the bottom here?
Well, first things first, I wouldn't hit the panic button if you're a Dodgers fan. You still have a Major League dominating plus 32 run differential. So things just kind of find a way to even out. They're 5-5 in their last 10. I'm sure that Las Vegas is very grateful for the San Diego Padres because, I mean, who would have thought? Look, I thought that these teams are going to be competitive, but maybe not in this way, where the Dodgers lose 3 out of 4 at home, and then the Dodgers win the 3 out of the 4 at San Diego. It's very interesting. The Padres are a team that we know is going to be competitive throughout the year, but that was a really thrilling weekend. And, you know, as a guy, I don't dislike either team, but that was just some exciting baseball yesterday, that comeback, man. I mean, you don't see that very often, especially when 2 good teams are going at it. So I think they've got to feel pretty good if they're the Padres. And if you're the Dodgers, look, things are going to be fine. You know how the Reds started really good? Well, they're dead last on their division, and that's who LA's got for their next 3 games. Then, Basu, later this week, though, a nice prove-it series here early on with a contender. They've got 4 games at Milwaukee, a team that we've already talked about a little bit on this program, and I think definitely one to watch. So I think that that's going to be a good thing if you're a Dodgers fan to kind of, you know, see where you're at. Can you win the series? Can you take 3 out of 4 and feel good there? I think they're going to be in good shape against Cincinnati as well. Now, the San Francisco Giants, I'm always obsessed with the schedule. A 3-game set against a Colorado Rockies team whose GM just stepped down. They're obviously not playing great baseball, and the Giants get to play them in 6 out of their next 9 games. Here's the problem with that, though. Sandwiched in between those are 2 3-game series against the San Diego Padres. This is a blood in the water division. I think that you and I and Chuck really thought it was going to be just a 2-team race, and I kind of joke around with the Giants fans because I'm not a Giants fan. I'm an A's fan being up here. I don't split my teams, but the NL West has been very intriguing, and I know we'll talk a little AL West in a minute as well. But competitive baseball, it's got us going, and I think I could almost hear your yesterday as the Padres got that thing into extra innings, man.
It was a good weekend series for the Dodgers and Padres. It'll make it interesting. They've already played 7 times, so they'll get 12 more games against each other, and it's going to be very interesting. They're going to play in June. The Dodgers don't even play the Giants until the end of May. And then San Francisco, you mentioned, is going to San Diego. All right, let's move on to the Central. You talked about Cincinnati a little bit. My guy Corbin Burns is going tonight to Milwaukee. He's a $1.64 favorite against the Miami Marlins, who can't hit, but I'm still on the Corbin Burns. I didn't realize he was 2-1. He lost his opening start 2-0 to the Twins. He got removed after a Byron Buxton home run. I was looking up the run support that he was getting. It's not very much. He's 2-1 with a 0.40 ERA. 40 strikes, 0 walks. We're almost at the end of April. And I was telling Charlie this on Friday that Dennis Eckersley in his 1988 year, talking about control guys, he walked 3 guys in his MVP and Cy Young year, to which Vince Scully said in the World Series, the greatest line I ever heard. You know you've had a good year when you remember all the hitters you've walked by name in a full season. So Corbin Burns doesn't even have that list yet. There's not even a list for that yet. So he's got a big game tonight. Cincinnati did get off to a hot start. That whole division, 4.5 games from top to bottom. Milwaukee got drubbed on Friday against the Cubs. Came back and won 2 out of 3 over the weekend as well. How about the New York Mets over the weekend? They're off today, but Jacob DeGrom, speaking of doesn't get run support, he's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner with a barely above 500 record in those 2 years because the bullpen has blown leads. They don't score enough runs for him. And what he did on Friday night against the Washington Nationals, I know the Nationals aren't what they were 2 years ago. 15 strikeouts and 4 hits, no walks, was just dominant. It didn't matter if you threw Babe Ruth, Roger Maris up there on Friday night. It was not going to matter against Jacob DeGrom. He's been somebody to look at. And the St. Louis Cardinals have gotten hot the last week. They've got Philadelphia tonight, who just got drubbed by Colorado over the weekend. They did have 1 win. But Adam Wainwright, Zach Wheeler going. And then you mentioned the Reds and Dodgers are going tonight with Julio Urias and Tommy Maile going. Tommy Maile's had a good year for Cincinnati as well, too. But the National League slate today, Casey, take it away in terms of what we're talking about.
Well, they pointed out on either MLB Network or ESPN last night how Bryce Harper's improved his batting average by nearly 100 points over the last couple of weeks here. I think this Phillies-Cardinals series, very intriguing because the Phillies are 10-11, which sounds pretty good on paper, right around 500 early on, but a terrible 2-7 away from the friendly confines there in Pennsylvania. Now, the Cards are 11-10, 5-4 at home, and they play in a division that I think is going to be competitive for a while. I mean, I really like that Central Division. The Brewers, I don't think by any means are going to run away with it. But a quick thought also on the NL East, because, you know, we're stat geeks when we talk baseball. This is a strange damn division as far as run differential is in baseball. The division leading Mets, who've only played 17 games because of the COVID stuff early in the season, they are -11 on their run differential. The Phillies in second place are -15 on their run differential. And then those Marlins, who you were talking about a little bit earlier, the lone team to be +1 as far as run differential. So somebody help me sort through that. That sounds like a whole lot of math. That's like next level geek math. That's like war squared we got to get to be able to play with stuff like that. Cubs and Braves seems like a decent matchup. I'd like to see a little bit more out of Charlie Morton. He's 1-1 with a 3.91 ERA. Zach Davies has not had a good start for the Cubs at 1-2 with an 8.8. And another fun fact on the Cubs, they're 2-4 away from Chicago, which is like, okay, great, maybe they'll have a chance. But the Braves are only 4-6 at home. So the way that this whole wacky season has gone, I think that there's going to be a lot of 500 baseball played, and this thing's going to be decided late in the year. And I can't tell you how much I like that. So since we only got 10 minutes left, let me just quickly give you a thought on my Oakland Athletics. Look, they were going to lose. Nobody wins 20, 25 games in a row except for once every lifetime. But 13-game win streak. They're playing well. They're hitting the ball. They're scoring runs. Their pitchers, who we were worried about being consistent, even Jesus Luzardo, who didn't look great yesterday, pitched pretty darn well the first 2 times through the order. Baltimore was just due for a victory, and they got it. So now you send Sean Manaea out on the mound against Rich Hill, who seems like has played for every team in Major League Baseball. That's an early start, by the way, guys, if you're gambling on it. Oakland is minus 111, and I'm actually going to have a play on that game, but not on the teams. I'm going to play the total. A's and Rays, I think that's a good one to keep an eye on. And my prediction for the week, this is the day where the Yankees start to turn it around. We're going to look back on today, Monday, April 26th. The New York Yankees finally started swinging the bats the way they were capable of, and they'll find a way to get a win against Matt Harvey. It's not a full slate because of this weird baseball scheduling, and I didn't even mention Mariners Astros. Let me throw it back to you for that one. What do you make of Houston now that they're starting to get their COVID guys back? I mean, this is a good team. We know that. They just obviously have had some major health issues, and the Seattle Mariners have been one of the next surprises in baseball this year.
Yeah, Seattle's done very well. They split the series with Boston. Boston has been a big surprise to start off the AL East. It's pretty interesting to me. Houston had the same type of weekend that the Milwaukee Brewers had. They got blown out on Friday night, and then they came back and won 2 games against the Astros this last weekend. And the Angels didn't have Mike Trout on Sunday yesterday either. So actually, they played 4 games. The Angels did win 2 games of that series. I'm doing this off my head. Some of the games this week that I'm looking at, the Minnesota Twins, they've struggled defensively. We saw what they did in Oakland, living here in the Bay Area. They were just horrible defensively. They're going to Cleveland tonight with Jose Barrios and Zach Plesac. I'm not sold on the Indians hitting-wise, but Minnesota being favored really, 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 really makes me wonder what's going on there. The Yankees with Davy Garcia. He's kind of a second-year guy that throws really hard. You talked about Matt Harvey. Matt Harvey pitched well his last outing in Miami when they went in and got the Marlins. They got 2 out of 3 out of the Marlins last week. And then the Texas Rangers and the Angels tonight. Shohei Ohtani is going to go up against Jordan Lyles tonight. Texas has hit the ball a little bit better than they started out at the beginning of the year. And Mike Trout's going to be back tonight in the lineup, according to everything I read. Ohtani minus 145, total 8.5. Shohei Ohtani, the first pitcher since Babe Ruth to be a starting pitcher and leading his league in home runs. I think he have 9 or 10 home runs. I can't remember what he has, but he's hitting the snot out of the ball right now. And then I'll be interested to see how Seattle recovers from the Boston weekend, because those Boston bats are really good. They had a couple of tough games, but they got those 2 wins. They won in extra innings on Thursday night, and then they won on Saturday behind Chris Flexen as they beat Boston's ace, Nathan Eovaldi, and then the Red Sox came back and won last night. But I like the way Seattle's hitting the ball. They obviously went into Boston, had a plan, and they took 2 out of 4 from a team that started off pretty well. So it's going to be an interesting American League series. And as you see the National League go by, I just want to mention one thing about the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves, the first team since 1977 to have consecutive games where they've had 1 hit or less, where Zach Gallen 1 hit them in the first 7-inning game of the doubleheader. And then Madison Bumgarner had a notable achievement. Not a no-hitter according to Major League Baseball, even though these are Major League Baseball rules, Casey, that he no-hit and no-run the the Atlanta Braves for 7 innings, but doesn't get credit for a no-hitter in the record books, even though baseball made the rule that they're 7-inning doubleheaders. So go figure on that, and that's just one of the news and notes that we have for the American League. So what do you like on the schedule today in terms of the American League games? What series is interesting you this week? I think Minnesota Cleveland is going to be pretty good, because I want to see if either one of those teams can come back up, catch the White Sox, and see if the Royals are real. The Royals just won their 4-game sweep. They had an afternoon game and won 3-2 against the Tigers over Detroit in the weekend. They swept Detroit for the first time in 25 years in Detroit. Casey?
Yeah, like I said earlier, Yankees, Orioles. I think that New York's about to turn it around. And, when you're a gambler and you've got a good team and they're underachieving, kind of like the A's starting 1-6, at some point they're going to run off a ton of wins in a row. And yes, you may have to lay a little more juice because they're the Bronx Bombers, but trust me, at some point they're going to win like 8 out of 11 or 9 out of 11, something like that, because they are that capable. Maybe it gets started today against a Baltimore team that's scuffled a little bit. I know they put 8 on the board yesterday. I think that that might be the time that they start doing that. Angels, Rangers, just for the Ohtani factor, because he's so darn enjoyable to watch. I mean, the Babe Ruthian statistics that you put out there. And lastly, just a quick thought. If I'm Mad Bomb, I'm saying, screw you guys. You made the rules. I went through all the innings. I didn't allow a hit. I'm putting it on my resume, and I want to get paid for it. There's another wrinkle of baseball, Vasu, that drives us crazy. Between these stupid runners on second and 7-inning doubleheaders, it's not the same baseball that even 3 years ago we would have seen. So it does cheapen things a little bit. And I was really happy for the guy, to be honest with you, because he has not done well since he's been back down there in the desert. Now, I know we've only got 5 minutes left. Had a little bit of a slate in the NBA today. I think the feature game, Suns, Knicks, definitely looking forward to this. The public is starting to say, wow, these New York Knicks can play a little bit. They're calling them Team Kentucky, La Familia North, because they got all those Kentucky superstars. That's one you want to keep an eye on, folks. And by the way, it is free tonight on NBA TV, 4:30 Pacific with the start there. Another one you might want to look at, the Memphis Grizzlies playing some good basketball in Denver against the Nuggets. You can continue to hear the debate about whether it's Jokic against the world and who the actual MVP should be. The actual MVP actually resides in San Francisco, but his team might not be good enough for him to pick that up. Yes, giving some love for Steph Curry. And before I throw it back to you, let me just get my picks out there for the folks that are tracking at home. 8-5 in Major League this year for me. Today, I have got 2 plays. I'm going to go with the Yankees. And Garcia lists the pitchers, minus 155 at Baltimore. Then the Oakland A's and Tampa Rays, under 9. You can get that at Circus Sports, FanDuel, and DraftKings. Under 9, and I didn't put the banner up there. I guess I should. Okay, thank you. I like that because Bob Melvin said in his press conference yesterday he will be resting players over the course of this series, meaning that less runs are very likely. In the NBA, it moved to 2.5 while we're talking, but I did get the Suns at -2. Now you can say, well, that's a rough spot with the Knicks playing so well. Well, that's why I'm going against the Knicks, because everybody's back on the bandwagon. And Phoenix is 10-4 on back-to-back games. Knicks get the hype, Suns get the hoop. They might be the best team in the West before this whole thing's said and done. So Phoenix -2, Yankees, A's, Rays under 9.
Couple of quick things here before I get to my picks. Looking forward to see the Washington Wizards game against San Antonio tonight because they're playing better and they've got the defense going. Washington 4-point underdog. I got a feeling San Antonio might get bit tonight from that scenario. Embiid and Simmons didn't play on Saturday against Milwaukee. 12.5 points against OKC. They're terrible. Phoenix, you're right, 2.5 points at New York. Don't know what to make of that one. Then Toronto and Cleveland. And then in the other set of games, Miami 6-point favorite over Chicago. Utah 10 at Minnesota. They just beat Minnesota. You never know what Minnesota offense is going to come out, but their defense is horrible. How about the Memphis Grizzlies? 2 games in a row at Portland. They come out with victories, kind of pushing Portland down into the 7-10 slot. They're still getting 4 points against Denver tonight. And then the Kings almost pulled off an upset against the Warriors, getting 5.5 points for the Dallas Mavericks, I think are in 6th place right now. And let me go back to you on this here on the MVP real quick. Actually, my thought on the MVP is Steph Curry is a candidate, but he's not the MVP. I still think Joel Embiid, unfortunately, he's missed too many games. He may not get it. Nikola Jokic is right there, but where's the Chris Paul love? Chris Paul should be right there in terms of MVP picks, because that team would be not where they were, even though he might not even be the best player on his team. All right, I'm going to get to my picks now since we got about a minute left here. Again, thanks to Russell Baxter for coming on. Download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast if you want to hear his pro football talk. I'm going to go with Corbin Burns, 40 strikeouts, no walks. Milwaukee Brewers, a little bit of offense in Chicago over the last weekend. Miami doesn't hit, -164. San Francisco Giants, 3 out of 4 over those Marlins. They've got Descafini going tonight, 164 at home. Washington Wizards, I talked about them, +4 against San Antonio at home. Clippers and Pelicans. Now check this game for a Paul George, Kawhi Leonard non-sighting, I guess, before you start taking the over there. 228.5. And then the Memphis Grizzlies. I said I think they're going to keep that roll going, and before you know it, they might end up in the 6th seed and not even have to be in the 7-10 tournament for that. The Memphis Grizzlies +4 at Denver tonight. Okay, I want to thank Russell Baxter again. You can reach him at Bax Football Guru, and then ProFootballGuru.com, Fansided.com, and all the other various publications and his Facebook groups that he's on. It was great. A lot of football knowledge, a lot of draft talk on Thursday as we get to it. Last words from Casey before we get out of here.
Get ready. The NFL, once again, is coming to take over your sport. I know we're talking baseball and basketball, but I'm going right back to that computer and going right back to NFL draft analysis. And we're going to have a ton of talk about it on Thursday and Friday. That's why it's the greatest sports league on earth, because they got us talking about it, and they won't be playing a snap for many, many, many months. Have a great day, folks. We always appreciate you tuning in.
All right, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you on Thursday, 4:15 with the NFL Draft Las Nevada Party. Casey Freelove here, back on Thursday, 4:15. Take care, everybody.